So you were saying last time, you you ate too much of the chocolate? How strong is it?
Oh yeah, so man, a lot stronger than I had anticipated. A customer of mine gave me this bar of chocolate, and he said, "Oh, he made it seem like it wasn't a big deal." So he said, "Oh, you should at least eat 4 pieces if you want to get high. Eat 4 pieces." And he's like, "Oh, it's good for taking a hot bath or whatever." So I said, "Okay," and the bar itself says, "Take 1 piece and then wait for 2 hours before even attempting another one." Um, so I ate 4. And the thing was, I was
You're like,
still at
fuck
work.
that! I spoke. I can handle
Yeah,
it.
yeah, right. And I was like, and yeah, so basically I ate 4, but before, while I was still working, because I thought it was going to take longer to hit. So I
Uh-huh.
was like, oh, this will be fine. I'll just be closing, and maybe it'll start then, like when I'm about to get out, and then it'll be like perfect because it takes some time.
Yeah.
And it started hitting before we were closed at the cafe. And trying to talk to customers, man, like I felt like autistic, basically. Like I couldn't, like I was just like, I was like, okay, act normal, act normal.
Yeah. You're
And
like, I'm sorry, sir. Can you turn down your inner thoughts? I'm picking them up too
yeah,
strongly.
seriously, that's the kind of the feeling of it. And then it was just the worst kind of situation because not only that, but then I forgot this plumber was coming in at 5 p.m. So I had to be with this strange person that I had never met before as he was fixing my machine. And what I knew is this was at risk for having to talk to my boss, in which I had to talk to my boss. And thankfully it was cool, and the plumber was out there soon enough, but then the plumber left. And then, I went into the bathroom and sat down and basically just like realized it was like a very psychedelic experience. It was to the point where time itself had begun to take a totally different texture because I could not tell. I was trying to close fast enough. I was like counting all the cash and trying to like do all the numbers, but my thoughts, I was taking so long. It took me like 20 minutes to do it just because it was so hard. There was just so much going on in my mind that I couldn't figure out how long I was taking. Like time, I don't know if you've ever experienced something like that with a trip. And I got to the bathroom where all of the walls seemed to be kind of coming apart from each other, almost like they were popping so much.
Hmm.
And I had to sit there and really just kind of respect it because I was like shaking, like my heart was going so fast. And then when I came out, I noticed the none of the faucets in the cafe were working, and I was like, "What? Oh my god! I thought I escaped talking to my boss, but now I have to tell him about this. Like, what could the plumber have possibly done working on the espresso machine to mess up all of our faucets?" And this like broke me. And it was basically a very harrowing and stressful bad trip, trying to manage that. And so that was the first week, and that like for hours on end I was not okay. Like it took me a long time to close, and then I got out, and my boss thankfully didn't come, and I didn't have to like talk to him. And but for whatever reason I like it. You know what, I would eat only 2, and I would do some of the scribbling stuff, and it was really fun. It was really great, and I could see how just to get lost in the music and to go. But like other times I just feel completely flattened. So I was eating these chocolates, and then after the bar was complete in about like a week or so, I felt amazing, like very, very energetic and creative and all this stuff. But I think what I think it is that you eat the chocolates and it kind of messes you up for a little bit. But then when you stop eating the chocolates, you bound out, like, and I think I'm going to try to experiment with that to see you know, it's what I want to do, I think, is to go into weed and then come out of weed and then go into weed and come out of weed to keep me fresh and thankful, thankful for a sober mind, and then thankful for the weed when I am when I am high.
I think it's the, you know, the kind of like contrasts in like states of being, you know. So like I used to smoke weed all the time. Like I don't even know, like for the longest time it would be like almost every day. And then you know, you only get really high like in your first initial high, whether it's in the morning or at night, depending if you have work or whatever. Then you initially get high, right? And then there's like this plateau, and then you keep on like, especially because I like had a friend that was selling weed, so I was getting like weed really cheap, and we were getting like, it was always like, oh, this stuff's really good. I'm like, okay, cool. And I'm like, oh, I'll buy like a quarter. And then the next thing I know, like initially I'll smoke, and they're like, oh, I'm really high. And then by the end of the week or even 3 days later, I'm like smoking blunts and like I'm not getting high. Then I have to like double up on like how much I'm buying and just like ingesting more just to get like that kind of like really stone feeling. And then like later I was thinking like, fuck, I'm wasting too much money. But it took me a while to learn this. And then later I was like, you know what? Taking breaks, like not only you get a high off of like being sober, like, you know, kind of being alert or whatever. Yeah. The same thing happens too with like if you're doing too much caffeine, too, you know, like you get like this kind of just like, oh, especially in the kitchen, we're like always like ingesting like, you know, energy drinks, espresso shots, like just go crazy. And I remember like one time after I had 2 days off in a row, I was like hungover. I was like, I think, you know, a little jittery. I didn't like stop caffeine just to like reset my body, and then like then you get like that kind of like alertness that you get when you have like, you know, you ingest a good amount of caffeine, and then, you know, you're like working or whatever. Same thing with like weed. It's not easy to do that, you know, like because you fall into like little habits and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. But, I think if I have weed, I will smoke it. I can't, you know.
Especially like early on, you're like, okay, I'm gonna buy it, like say an eighth, and I'm gonna make it last 3 days, and then by the end of the night, you're just like, fuck it, that's not even enough for the next day. Let's just smoke it out.
Yeah, I think what happens to me is like that initial high is really awesome, and I get a lot of different ideas. Like, oh, I'm gonna be working on a video. I've got all this great footage that I've been capturing over the winter, and I'm gonna write something, and I just have this plan all of a sudden to do this video that I think is going to be impressive and people like and stuff, and that was from last night from getting high. But then I sit down to actually do it, and I'm like, oh, I'm useless. I'm just a soup. I'm a soup of highness right now, and I can't actually like. There's a confidence that I have when I'm sober that I don't have when I'm high. Sometimes I think it's like the chaotic energy is too much. There's too much chaos. There's too much. I'm not sure of anything, and so that's. And then the thing with the caffeine too is, you know what? It's the high from being sober of caffeine is actually entering into like this kind of subtle place where all of a sudden, like I feel like my thoughts are much more soft, and they can. I notice this when I try to write. Because when I'm on caffeine, it's like this hard train of thought that just like, you know, is like a straight line and is demanding its own kind of attention. But I'm much more able to listen and to soak up energies and when I'm not on caffeine, when I haven't had caffeine yet, which is the thing.
You know, and two. Well, this is like my new state, and it's more just economically for me, not like some like judgment or morality or whatever about smoking weed. It's just that I've been pretty poor, so I just can't afford to like smoke so much. But I do notice when I do smoke, like I get high. Like I tell my friends, like, dude, I haven't been smoking, so I'm gonna cough like a little schoolgirl, and it'll be fucking like stoned. And I do. I get and I look at my friends, and I'll be like, "Fuck, man, I used to, like I can hang." But it's also funny to like get out of that mindset. I mean, especially early on in my 20s, the mindset is like a weird mindset of like, let's see how much we could like ingest. Like, let's see how much we could drink. Let's, like this binge quality.
You're really testing your limits when you're younger.
Yeah,
and it's like fun and thrilling. But now it's like if I get too drunk, I don't like it at all. Like I really don't like it. It's very punishing.
Yeah, it is. It takes its toll on you.
Yeah,
and then you just think like, "Fuck." Like I feel like shit.
Well, I had a hangover the other day that got worse as the day progressed. I thought it was so unfair. Like how like a mild headache turned into like almost a migraine like at 6 p.m. It's like, what the fuck this is not cool. I don't like this. Yeah. And you know what? When I'm too well, what we're gonna say?
Oh, I was just gonna talk about my funny stories about edibles. So like I remember I'm 33, gonna turn 34 July 1st. So when I think it was around like 18, 19, that one particular summer, it's like when everybody started getting medical cards. Like it wasn't even like before that, like in high school, it wasn't like a thing. But then all of a sudden, like it was like everybody was getting them. And so I remember the first couple edibles. This was before they even had, I think it was even like there was like these companies, they were just like spoofs on like, so like a Snickers. It was like a Snickers, but it's called Stoner Bud Finger, like Butterfinger, and I forgot what the other one was. But so they're like parodies of real chocolates, and we got them, and this is the first time we had like this like kind of like fancy edible that we weren't making. And we're like, okay, cool. And then like I forgot how much they were. They're like $10-15 each. And we're like, fuck. It's like, well, let's do it. And then we're like, fuck, let's just get that and like hang out. I think it was like 4 of us. And so we go and we get them from my guy, and we eat them. And we're just sitting around, and like after we eat it, we're just like sitting there, like, okay, so now what? And then we're like, this fucking candy's not hitting us. We're like, this is not shit to us. And we're like, let's go call up our guy and like let's get some weed so we could smoke. And then so we go and we drive to our friend's house. We call him out. We're sitting outside his house, and he's gonna bring us our sack of weed. And we're literally like seconds before he comes to the car. Like we like my friend Mandy, she calls up the guy and says, "Hey, we're outside." I was like, "Okay, I'll be out there in like a second." And we're like, "Okay." She hangs up, and it hit us all at the same time, and we start busting up laughing, like uncontrollably laughing, like painful laughing for no reason, just laughing. And we look at each other, and we gotta like piece ourselves together, like. He's not gonna want to sell us the weed. Like we're just like hysterically laughing. We look like fucking weirdos, and we can't stop laughing. And then we try to hold it in, and he comes out and he gives us the weed, and we're just like too stoned, and we're like, oh my god, I think we gotta. It's bad. It's bad when your weed dealer looks at you like, dude, you guys are too stoned.
Yeah, that's when you get cut off.
He's like, I don't know if I should sell you the cycle. But it's so funny because we ate it, and like that's the funny thing about edibles. Like, I grew up like smoking joints and blunts, and it's like this whole ritual. You get it like in a circle, you pass it around, and you kind of like talk. It's like this whole like social ritual that we have with our friends. So when you eat the edible, it's weird. You're like, what do we do? It's like you have to wait for it to hit you, and then it's like this kind of like solo thing. But the worst time when I had an edible, I went up to Santa Cruz. We visited our friend, and he was giving us. So the day before he said, "Dude, I got some shrooms. Like, come on down. I was like, all right, let's go. So we planned a whole trip. We were gonna shroom it, hippie flip. So we planned out the initial thing we were gonna do was hippie flip, and so we go and like we had like the time of our lives. Like it was crazy. It was like what I consider this private beach on Santa Cruz my psychedelic birthplace. It's like my mecca. It's like when I really had like the full experience of like the earth like pulsating, and like I always say, like before that I understood that Gaia like as a theoretical theory. I read books about, you know, the earth as an entity, but this is the felt experience of like everything just beaming with life, and it was just amazing experience. And so the next day we're like, what do we do now? Like we just like fucking had this crazy experience, like this just chill, and we kind of walked around campus, and then my friend's like, hey, I have a friend who's there's these old hippies, and like they've been here for generations, and they grow weed, and then they make these special hash cookies. He's like, you guys want to get some? And we're like, fuck yeah, some hash cookies, that sounds good. Like we just felt like chilling that day because like we had the crazy experience, and we're still like have this like afterglow of our psychedelic experience. We're like, oh yeah, just enjoy some hash cookies. Like that's no problem. We get the hash cookies, and they're small, and they're like just little sugar cookies. And he's like, they're pretty strong. And I'm like, dude, I fucking just took an eighth of mushrooms. I did a double stack of E yesterday, and we smoked like shit. I think I smoked like an eighth to the dome myself. I like, this hash cookie is not gonna do shit to me. So I just like eat all of it. We're walking around campus, and we go to this one place where it's like there's like this forest, and then they have like this outdoor amphitheater, and it's surrounded by trees. And so we're sitting there, and all it like the beginning of Dark Side of the Moon, where it has like a heartbeat, like I can hear my heartbeat. It's a boop, 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 but I can feel it, and it like has like this like sonic quality of like around me, like just like the air is like pulsating, boop, 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 boop. And I'm like, look at my friend, and I look at my other friend. I was like, oh shit, this cookie's gonna kick my ass. And and I see my friends too. Like, you can see kind of like the because this is just when it's hitting us, the initial fear, and we're like, let's get back to the dorm. And we're talking, and we just kind of like look at each other and like shake our heads, and we get back to the dorm. And I kid you not, for hours I'm sitting on the edge of the couch, just like staring into nothing. And like I felt like a stone statue. And then like in my stone mind, I was like, oh, this is why it's called getting stoned. Like it was hard to move. Like it was physically hurt. And we just sat there just like not saying anything, not doing anything, just like looking out into nowhere. And then like later we were like, we should have ate that cookie. And like that experience was like crazy, not crazier like as visuals, but crazier physically. Like physically, I think we had like too much THC, and we just were like, dude, that fucking we handled the eighth of mushrooms and the E like champs, but when we got our ass kicked by a little hash cookie. Oh man.
Yeah, you have to respect crazy. Edibles. You have to respect edibles.
They sneak up on you.
I've had more bad experiences with edibles, I think. Maybe than not. I'm not sure. I don't know. The bad experiences are more memorable for sure. and I do recognize that fear of when it hits fast and hard. Yeah. And you think, oh God, I've got 6 hours of this. What the fuck is this going to be?
Yeah, this is just the come up.
This is the come up. Yeah.
Oh man, but edibles are responsible for me helping my friend. Okay, so my friend, we're probably like 20, 21. We're going to junior college, and you know, just kind of like going to school, partying every Thursday through Sunday, like living for the weekend kind of stuff, and just like floating along. And my friend, she got accepted to Hawaii. She's like a year younger than me, so she didn't go to Hawaii. She got accepted, and we're just there, like, you know, I made brownies because I had like a shit ton of weed. I'm like, fuck, let's just make we're at our friend's house that has like the back house, It was like her own little apartment, and we're like just kicking it there. She was gone all day, so I made the brownies, and then it was just me and her. We had like this whole tray of brownies, and we're like, should we wait for everybody? And we're like, no, let's just have some. And then we just started eating more, and we're like really stoned. And like I remember I said, we got to test it to see how strong it is. And then we start eating it, and then we're just like stoned, and we're watching movies. And then Mandy's just like has this like existential like crisis. She's like, what am I doing? It's like, fuck, I should have went to Hawaii. I can't believe I stood here for Joe. He doesn't even, like, we're not even dating. And, like, it was stupid. And fucking my parents are on my back. I fucking hate working at Hot Dog on the Stick. Like, all this kind of stuff. And then I just, like, look at her. I was like, why don't you just go to Hawaii? And she looks at me and is like, I didn't accept going to Hawaii University. I was like, why don't you call and see if it's still valid? And if it's not valid, then just apply. Like, why don't you just go? And so she's like, you know what? You're right. And she literally calls her mom, all stoned. And she calls, and she walks out, and she comes back in a minute later, and she's like, sits on the couch, just kind of like dazed. I'm like, what happened? I guess I'm going to Hawaii. I'm like, fuck yeah, Mandy, you better go to Hawaii. And it was all because like that. I was just like, dude, just go. Why don't you go? And she's still there. She's still in Hawaii.
Wow.
To this day. All due to edibles.
That's why I want to do it, because I want it's almost like taking a lottery ticket for me and saying, maybe I'm gonna get a really good idea. And I get them often enough when I'm high that it still attracts me. And I get frustrated if I don't get those ideas, or if I I don't like the feeling of being stoned. I like the feeling of inspiration that sometimes can accompany these kind of psychedelic states.
It all depends too on, well, I'm more and more I think about it, and the more and more I do whatever this thing that I'm doing, it's really comes down to set and setting, but like all of life comes down to that set and setting. And even what I was talking about, so like prior to the open mic night, leading up to the open mic night, I kind of like unplugged. I was kind of like and it gets really easy to like, okay, prior to unplugging, I was like really like dialed in and doing all those Curry Hobo videos and doing for all the crazy minds and feeling really good. Then my dad said, hey, what are you doing this week? And I'm like, nothing. It's like, what's up? And he's like, oh, let's go to spring training. And I'm like, okay, this sounds good. And then like part of me was like, oh, I'm like in this really creative flow. It's like, but now like, this is a good opportunity. Just get away. Fuck it. Like, who cares? Like, let me just shut off. And then but then as I shut off, I get that like feeling like, am I missing a lot of stuff? Like, am I like so like in a creative tunnel that I'm not like, doing actual things like in the world, and like, am I too much in my inner space that I'm like ignoring the outer world? I know I don't like to get like caught up in the narratives of like society, but I don't want to miss out on like interactions with my family or going out and experiencing things out in the world and all this kind of stuff. And there's like this balance,
Yeah.
And
for sure.
so as I unplug, it kind of like gets easier to like, oh fuck it, I don't even want to like check anything on the internet. Like, oh, let me just like stay away. And then you get like, what the fuck? Like, am I just wasting my time doing this fucking stupid shit on the internet? Like what the fuck? Like, I should just stop it. Like, what is the point? Like, this and that. And then I was like, okay, I missed the open mic night, but it's not an issue or anything like that. But I was like, they're gonna have a note. So when I signed on, I was like, okay, open mic night. I was like, okay, I want to do something. Like, I want to like kick it off for everybody. I want to like fucking like wake everybody up and like, let's go, let's do this. And so like I felt the attention, but I was still stuck in between. I was still like, fuck, Like,
Yeah,
what am I going to do?
yeah. I think, well, the thing that I've been thinking about lately is they look at crows, and that crows were throwing themselves down hillsides for no reason. They would just roll down, and they would say, well, why are the crows doing that? And they think, well, crows are pretty smart, and they think that what's happening is the same with what happens with us, is that we enjoy changing our brain states. Yeah. And actually, for intelligent creatures, this is necessary to keep it fresh. It's like hitting the side of the machine, you know, to keep it working. And so quitting weed does that. Getting on weed does that. Going on mines does that, but also getting off mines. And I think, and I think that it's just a shame. It really is a shame that there's only like, it seems to me every day there's only like 3 or 4 parts of me that are working, but they're working well, but they're different parts. So if there's like 20 parts of me, it's like always just like a different combination of you know, talents and interests and motivations that are active. And it's very frustrating if you want to do something consistently, like, I don't know, write a book or something, or like, you know, stay on minds and be consistent, because like that's the whole thing with social media, is you have to be consistent. But I think it's if you can go away and you can come back and you're able to come back, I think it's a healthy thing. And for me, I'm always afraid that I'm getting stale on minds, or that I think that I'm getting contrived and I don't even know it. There's like a little feedback mechanism in which like you do one thing and it seems to work okay, and then you like into it, so you do it more, and then you do it more, and then it becomes habit. You don't even know that you're doing it. And then in order to do it, to like, because you don't even know you're doing it, you're going like way beyond what's necessary. You know, like, you know, just little things like, am I putting like too many smiley faces on this shit? Like, it's like, is that one too many exclamation points? Like, why am I so like, maybe I need to be a little bit cooler about this, you know?
Yeah.
So you know, that's why, you know, that's why I like to go away and come back. And you know, it's the same with politics. If I'm like too much in the left wing sphere, I gotta go to the right wingers. And then if I'm too much in the right wing sphere, I gotta go back to left wingers in order to like get a sense of reality. It's all within like the change and the contrast, I think.
And it's so funny because that's something I mean, I'm so looking back on my own development. I'm so like thankful that I read. At the right time in my life, I found Robert Anton Wilson. And it was like this, like, the way I came to his books was exactly kind of like what he explains in The Cosmic Trigger. And that's why I always use Cosmic Giggle, because I was 23 at the time. And at that time, I think I was 23, or maybe I was going, because in the summer I turned 20. I mean, that's my birthday. So I don't know if I was just entering 24 or 23. But anyways, Florence and the Machine had this song, Dog Day Night or Dog Day Summer or something like that. And it was like playing everywhere. You just heard it everywhere. And it was always playing. But in The Cosmic Trigger, he talks about all sorts of crazy stuff. But he specifically talked about the Sirius Star and the Dogon tribe, and like all this like crazy stuff that is mixed up between like what is like happening on our culture, but what's happening with the planets, and what's happening within your own inner space, how it reflects out in art, and how that art interacts with society and technology, and like this whole like gambit. And that's what he calls like the Cosmic Trigger. And he not only talks about it like philosophically, but it's like a weird psychedelic biography. And he talks about his life, but he also talks about his thoughts, but what experiences in his life led to that thinking. And you know, he talked about how he was like engineer, then he took psychedelics, and then he started writing for Playboy. Like, he's always wanted to write, but then it was like that practical thing. It's like I can't make money with this. It's like I gotta get a career and then like I just mess around with my writing, and then he kind of like gets to this point because he keeps on getting this message is like he needs to like kind of the thing follow your bliss, even though that you might not like have like it's not be a plan, and then like how this leads to him writing for Playboy and meeting Timothy Leary and like getting involved in the whole culture and like everything that was happening at that time, and like him meeting all these crazy people and all this crazy stuff that was happening to him. So it was funny because I was like literally reading the book for the first time, and he kept on talking about the serious star and how during this time. So this is his biography talking about it. He wrote this book called the Luminous Trilogy, and it's just like this this book that he wrote with someone else, and it's like this huge, epic sci-fi psychedelic thing. And it says how it was his way of communicating what was happening with him and the whole culture at the time, the counterculture, like everything that was happening at that moment. And the only way he could express it was in this sci-fi kind of story, and created these characters and how to express what he couldn't really express. And he said that, you know, the muse for us, like we literally had this one trip where we're getting information from the Sirius B star. Like it was like we took psychedelics and like that star system beamed a light at us, and then we had this flash of like this world, and then it was just us like trying to grapple it and bring it back and like make it flesh it out. And that's what that book is about. And so he starts talking about it, and he said like later we find out that, you know, the Dogon tribe back in the day was like talking to the star system. Aleister Crowley talks about the Sirius B star system. Like it's everywhere once. And then he goes into this thing about like William S. Burroughs, and he talks about the 23 Enigma, and that he was the first one to tell him, and he doesn't know how much of it is his own projection of like, you know, someone tells you and then you project it, but the more you dig into it, there's more of like a core of that. Like after William S. Burroughs told him about the 23 Enigma, like he started seeing 23 everywhere, and he said he had to like stop himself because he's going insane. But the same thing with like the Sirius satellite system, and then the whole time, like I couldn't get away from that song, and it was called "The Dog Day Summer." I forgot what exactly the title is, but it had like this refrain, like this chorus talking about the dog day nights. And I was just like, every time I would hear that book was echoing back at me, and I was like seeing things reflected. Just because he gave me all this information, I was seeing the glimmers of the cosmic giggle like just shining at me, like everywhere I looked that summer. Like every time, then like. It was like I was calling like psychedelic summers, because like I wasn't even looking for shrooms. The shrooms were finding me. Like friends would call me up. Like I literally had my pot dealer down the street call me up. Like I think after I read that book, it's like, hey, what's up, Dan? I know you're always looking for shrooms. I just got a big old load of shrooms. Like if you wanted some, I didn't call him. I didn't ask him. Like, hey, do you have any shrooms? He called me, and I was like, okay. So I bought like an ounce of shrooms, had shrooms. Like, and it was funny because I was like selling shrooms, and I was taking them a lot, and everybody wanted to take it with me because like I couldn't get this thing that I couldn't really explain out. So every time I was smoking with somebody, I'd be like, dude, you know, like, have you been like thinking about this? I've been thinking about that. And like, what, you know, this is whole crazy about our perception and what's going on in the world. He was like, you're fucking a trip, Dan. And I was like, I don't know, like this and that. And it's like, and then they'll buy the shrooms off of me, and they're like, hey, we want to take shrooms with you. We want to take shrooms with you. So like every weekend, like everybody's like, hey, Dan, let's take some shrooms. I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's go. Let's keep on like. And it was just like this crazy summer, and it reflected like his own experiments. Then I wasn't as disciplined as him. But anyways, so I remember later, I was reading another book by Robert Anton Wilson. And my cousin, who like grew up in my house, she's more like a sister, and she's I don't know, she's like 5 years younger than me. So she's, you know, I'm kind of like at this point like more mellowed out, like, you know, working in kitchens, and then she's like 18, 19, and she's like partying and like more into the like what's happening right now. And she's like, this is your book? And I'm like, yeah. And it's like, why are you reading this when there's all these Illuminati videos on the internet, on YouTube? Just look it up on YouTube. And I was like, and I just like smile and like is the whole like you don't know, like one, there's a whole different experience reading the book than versus like sitting and seeing something. But also two, that's not really what this is. It's about being able to see different narratives and reality tunnels and breaking down that kind of that noise and seeing it as a lens, just one lens to gather information, but then get another lens. And it doesn't have to like his main thing is that I'm agnostic, but not just agnostic about religion, agnostic about every ideology. And I just see every ideology as a different lens for me to pick up information. And the more lenses I have, the more colors and the more details and more data I get of what's actually going on. And then his whole thing is like you can never get outside of your own nervous system, but you can keep on expanding it out. And I think this is what, you know, whatever this other is trying to have us do, you know? And so like later, I mean, I was like off of the internet. I was just kind of like, fuck everything. And then I started using Facebook just to like talk to my friends. And then one day I just read an article about Minds, and I get on Minds, and it was like taking acid, like all sorts of different ideas. And I was just like, dude.
Yeah, it is. It is a bit. I think, you know, at first I was like, you know, disturbed and, you know, like, oh, what am I getting myself into? Oh, geez, you know, that's sort of an idea. But there's also like a thrill.
You came on in a different time, like that at that initial time. It wasn't as dominated by one ideology or one narrative. There's a plethora of narratives, but like I was getting introduced to stuff that I didn't even know about, like blockchain, and then seeing stuff that I do know about, and then I'm like, oh, I was just like getting excited, like, oh, Terence McKenna, like people are doing cool things with Terence McKenna lectures. I'm like, I read a lot of his books. I actually read all of his books, but didn't have anybody to like bounce off. Like, okay, one time at a 3-day rave, I take the Invisible Landscape and the Archaic Revival. And I said, we're going to be there for 3 days. We're going to take psychedelics. And then I want to, like, commune with people.
What's up, dude? I can't see you, but I can hear you.
That's okay. My computer has some weird thing where the camera doesn't work.
Oh, bummer, man.
Yeah, it's a Windows thing.
I'd love to see you.
One day I'll switch to Linux like a real man.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
What browser are you using?
I'm on Brave.
Okay.
But it's not. I don't think it's a browser thing. I think it's a Windows thing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I'm on.
What did it interrupt?
What's that?
I was just finishing up that I didn't know it was socially unacceptable to bring Terence McKenna books to a 3-day rave.
What?
You can't do that? Like,
you can't do that. I thought you could.
You guys are looking at me like I'm the freak.
Did you go to a 3-day rave?
That was like this was a long time ago, but I was just talking about how like I don't know, just being different at different places. Like I wanted to like I remember just like wanting to like, okay, I'm gonna find other people that are like into Terence McKenna, and we're gonna finally figure out this fucking Invisible Landscape bullshit. I know there's something going on. And then so I take it, and like everybody is like looking at me like if I'm like a Mormon trying to like convert them or something, like walking around all psychedelic down with my Visible Landscape book. Like everybody just wants, and everybody else just wants to like fucking party and bullshit. Which I'm not against party and bullshit. Like I was down for that. I was the craziest one in the night, like opening up vortexes and going crazy, passing around blunts, and then but during the day I wanted to like get down to some business. I was down.
Sweet.
I have a buddy who's a huge